Hi, and welcome to the Red Tunic Podcast, a podcast where I look to rediscover what makes gaming fun and enjoyable by having positive conversations with those related to the industry. My name is Link, and today I'm joined by Rittz, maker of the upcoming 3D platformer Electrokinetic, and other smaller 3D platformers like Deathroll Frenzy, Blazing Dynamo, and Stratosphere. Hi, Rittz, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm Ritz. I'm tired, but I am here.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Ritz. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah,
Hopefully, this doesn't go horribly and you can get some rest once everything is said and done.
it's fine. I think I'll be fine. I'm good. I'm good. It's all good.
So, Ritz, before we get started, if you don't mind, could you
Yeah.
maybe tell, me and whoever's listening a little bit about yourself, just so we have a better idea of who you are?
Yeah, sure. I'm one of many random Twitter game devs. I've been at it uh for a couple of years now, and I make a lot of projects that have to do with, I guess, have movement at their core, if I had to use one funny word. And that mostly manifests in 3D platformers. With I'm finally hunkering down and settling to release, like you said, Electrokinetic this year, hopefully, assuming things don't go catastrophically wrong. Uh, excuse me.
Well, fingers crossed for you that nothing does go catastrophically wrong. Just because, I don't think that should be wished on anyone, really. Uh, but yeah, no, like that's great. And I tried Blazing Dynamo. I think shortly after you released it, I think it might have been like from a game jam or just when you put it out there. I don't remember. It's been a while now.
It might have been the 2020 or yeah 2020 Sage.
Maybe I really don't remember. But like I stumbled across it and it was well, one, it was hilariously like fantastic. Just like, you're a little um I don't even know how to really describe what you are. Um
The TV-headed robot girl.
with yeah, with the plug as a tail kind of thing. Um so yeah, so like I thought that was just absolutely fantastic. And then the you know, I'm not someone that is incredibly good at technical movement games,
Yeah.
but from what I was able to do, and like I was able to do most things in it. I've seen some videos or clips of people playing it, and they were doing some absolutely wild things. But from what I was able to do, and I had a ton of fun, and it was, you know, absolutely fantastic. And it was, this really interesting setup just because I fundamentally don't understand like the highly technical movement kind of like 3D platformers, and like the mindset behind it to make that all work is just wild to me. Um so like yeah, I just want to say like I tried it, and I'm sure from what I've seen of Electrokinetic, which is I don't want to say it's going to be a similar thing, but I trust that it's going to have like a similar level of movement based um things, skill, usage. I don't know the right word. But based on like what I've seen from your other work and from what I played with Blazing Dynamo, I think Electrokinetic's probably going to be an absolute blast in like the whole movement system, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no. There's a lot to go off of there. For well, I guess just on electrokinetics sense, it's a little bit so Blazing Dynamo is my first real attempt at like putting together I guess a character's moveset and movement system. It's got a lot of stuff and it's a little all over the place. And I continue to be a little all over the place, but I think it's the least focused and also the most familiar, if that makes sense. There's a lot of like stuff that just feels like, oh, this is from like Mario or like Hat in Time or whatever, right? Those are my two big references when originally working on that game. And I've kind of branched out from there. I don't know if you played did you play Deathroll Frenzy at all?
I had not had a chance to try it. I've looked at it and I watched a few videos on it. And if I remember correctly, um, it was it was from a game jam that was based around dice or something, correct? And like you had to keep rolling the dice to make sure your I'm gonna say your health meter, you know, you have like the wick, right? Your health meter stays long, so like it's set up that you have to bring this dice through the entire level, otherwise you eventually die, correct? More or
Yeah,
less.
that's more or less it. You have it's like playing a level in Super Mario where you have a very short timer and you gotta hurry up. Except you can extend it by rolling this funny dice and praying it doesn't land on a -1. um, but yeah, I bring it up just because I think that game, being my last like pure 3D platformer that I guess I've put out, feels a lot better and is a lot more interesting. And also like more cohesive as well. Um, well, I think Dynamo was putting everything I could think of at the time just kind of into one character. Um, Electrokinetic is kind of in a similar ballpark because the fact that, so to describe Electrokinetic a little bit more, it is a roguelite 3D platformer. Um, and your roguelite power ups are all movement abilities, more or less. There's some other stuff like your little pea shooter fires faster or further distance, but it's mostly things like, oh, you have a double jump, you have a zip line, you have a dash, you have a wall run, etc. And you have all of these different slots your abilities can go into. Um, and there's maybe like 4 or 5 for most of them. So it's like 5 different dashes, 5 different double jumps, 5 different run buttons, uh, a few different. I don't have. I need a better name for these. I just call them air crouch, air crouches, but it's basically in the slot that the ground pound would be for talking Mario. Um, so you like a hover, dive kick. What are the other ones?
Oh,
Uh,
okay, so like downward shoot movement kind of things, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. There's the one is like the bounce bracelet from Sonic. Um, there's one that's just like it just stops you, but you have a little shield around you before you just fall at normal speed. Um, and I think there's one more, but I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I have a lot of stuff in this game, but it's you're kind of trying to work with what you have to platform as best as you can and get more experience, I guess, so you can get more moves and platform better and faster and stronger and all that. It's the goal is mostly to, and because the other half of this is you have your roguelite, your different skills, you can reset every time and all that. And the actual levels themselves are very simple. I am not a big maths guy. I'm not a very smart programmer. Um, I just kind of get by. The only reason I'm even able to really do this is I use Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine has a visual scripting system called Blueprints. Um, this is actually like half of the reason I even got into this all, because Unreal Engine was kind of advertised as being a game engine that's good for artists to use. And I'm like, hey, I'm a stupid artist. Maybe I could try it. Um, and eventually it worked out. It took a couple of tries, but eventually it all started to click and make sense. I'm like, oh, okay. And there's still a lot of aspects that I don't understand or have barely touched, but I have enough to make a game, more or less. So, hey, pretty cool. Um, been all over the place already. uh, let's see here. Yeah.
So, that is pretty interesting. Like the whole setup of, uh, from what it sounds like for the roguelike elements, is that, that that's a pretty interesting setup that the move set is going to be dynamic based on, the, the, the run, so to say, not like, you pick character A and character A will do X, Y, and Z and what have you,
Yeah.
that it's going to be dynamic in that, obviously you'll have what you what you prefer and what you like, but it's going to be not the same each time. And I think that's a unique approach with, when doing a roguelike to, to kind of spice it up a little bit. Because most of the time, it'll be for roguelikes, it'll be like, your weapon or your skills surrounding your weapon, but not fundamentally how you traverse the level
Yeah.
outside of a dash or two.
Yeah. So, right, I was gonna talk about level, and I'll get to that. Level generation is basically there's a grid, and on the grid there are I guess tiles of like little pieces of the environment. There's small, medium, and large ones, one by one, two by two. They're all just little like handmade tiles with a little tiny bit of RNG inside of there, but the layouts are all just hand done. Um, and it just stitches them together randomly. And it also, the important thing as well is it leaves them open. There's no walls in between these. Which actually lends itself to a really nice, because usually if you have like a roguelike that's like with the room based tiles, you get like a room, and then it'll have like a set amount of like exits and entrances, and then those will splinter off, right? But every room is like an isolated affair. This benefits from not having that, so there's like a greater amount of variance, because one tile can influence how you approach the next one, because oh, I can stand up on this spot of this tile, which makes it really easy to jump over there, or there's a wall here, or there's an enemy here I have to consider when going over there, etc., etc. So it's cool. It's very much Electrokinetic is kind of a game um, when you're playing it, just about like getting into that flow state. Um, it's sort of me trying to test out the idea of just having fun movement and a space to use it in can kind of be enough sometimes. Um, Obviously, good level design is very important still, and it's kind of there, but it's not as it won't get into like the super incredibly tight doctored stuff you'd see in a normal linear platformer, because it can't. I actually have to design for a very low bar of possible mobility, I suppose. Um, I'm probably going to make a system to say like, hey, after this point in the run, if you somehow got this far and you don't even have like a double jump or like some kind of thing to let you jump higher than the default amount, I'm just gonna force you to take a double jump or something, so you can participate in the rest of the run with your weird no upgrade thing that you're doing. Because I'd like to have some sections that take advantage of a theoretically more what is it, more mobile character, because you should be that. And there are other things I'm doing to address that. So the current like uh, flow of a run is basically that you start off and you're going very slow and nice and easy. You can just take your time, collect all the stuff you want, try to make a build that you like, or if not, at least a build you can use to do the levels effectively and everything. But as you get like maybe 20 minutes in, once you hit like area 4 or 5, there's a paradigm shift when the events start happening. Um, I referenced some kind of to like, if you played Kirby Air Ride.
I have actually, that's like one of the few and probably only Kirby games I've never actually touched.
Ah, damn, it's a bummer. It's a good one. Um, Kirby Air Ride's pretty cool. It has a mode called City Trial in it, where it's like an open world, not open world, but it's like an open area, where you just dropped in a map with all your friends and you're all on your little racing power stars, but you're not racing. You're just trying to like collect stat boosts or find a good ride or beat each other up or whatever. And then there's like a final mini game test at the end that takes like 10 seconds. And you're like, man, that sure is like a tiny part of this mode. But in City Trial, there are events that can happen. So it'll be stuff like meteors. A giant meteor will fall from the sky. All of the fast travel stations catch on fire. All of the power ups are bouncy now, or there's a great fog in the area. So you can have stuff like that. And that's kind of what happens here. Every time you go onto a floor, there will be a random little hazardous event like that that you have to navigate. And typically, this means that you're trying to get all the things you need to do before that happens. Because once it happens, platforming gets a lot harder because there's so much more to juggle now on what were previously just simple little bits of geometry you could just kind of traverse without having to worry too much about it. Um, Outside of like hitting a spike ball or falling into a pit or whatever. There are enemies too, but they're a little what's the word? Not very threatening at the moment. Um, you don't really have to engage with them super hard, but once the wrench gets thrown in, yeah. But yeah, overall, Electrokinetic is just like you said, just kind of it's just rare in that there's not really many other contenders for the title of 3D platformer roguelike at all. It's not a thing that happens. um, the only other one of note I know of is Phantom Abyss, if you've heard of it. It's like kind of like an Indiana Jones-esque like first person platformer.
Oh,
There's by
right, right,
Devolver.
right.
Yeah. There's the big gimmick is that at every dungeon is you get into a long dungeon that's procedurally generated, but you can see everybody else's ghosts, and then one person gets to be the victor. Once the end is reached and the prize is claimed and the dungeon is closed. But yeah, that's the only other one of note. One actually did come out last year, and I don't want to. I don't know if I should name drop it just because I want to say I don't think it's very good, and I don't want to be too rude. The problem I felt was that basically there's a few ways that you can have a good roguelike, and that's by just having very deep gameplay, having very what's the word? Very extensive systems with a lot of room for emerging gameplay and like overlapping stuff. Very very descriptive. Or just very very strong and varied level generation. Um, but basically, the idea is something to make the multiple runs thing work well, right? If you have if your inherent like gameplay is a little bit shallow, that's okay if your level design is very varied because it still means you have a high amount of variance and keeps runs fresh, right? If you have a very low amount of if your levels are just like if it's like Hades where there's just like a few set rooms really, um, but your build variety can go so crazy, then it's okay because that's where the focus of your gameplay is. Um, the other game I feel like didn't really have any of those, unfortunately, so it just kind of fell flat. In addition to just kind of controlling a little rough, Electrokinetic definitely falls into the what is it? Into the camp of having somewhere between having a lot of builds and having deep gameplay. It's admittedly a single character in Electrokinetic will not be as deep as say Bucket from Blazing Dynamo, simply because I can't count for like all the like weird inputs you could do in that game. Like there were certain moves that required like a 3-step, 4-step button input or something like that. I don't think anything gets worse than. There's probably a 3 one in there somewhere, but most of them are a 1 or 2 here. So it's a little simpler, but again, you have the variants. You're basically making your own 3D platformer character. So yeah,
So, thank you for walking me through Electrokinetic and, the mindset behind it and such. Because, that sounds like all that sounds really interesting. Like I'm looking forward to it, especially after from what I experienced in Blazing Dynamo.
yeah,
I had fun with that. And uh from the sounds of it, you might have kind of walked back a little on the complexity, and by that I mean like the number of like total button inputs or what have you. Which, some people might be a little upset about that, but for me, that's probably the sweet spot for what I would be capable of doing. Because like I 100% know there are people that are more than able or are able to excel at, I should say,
yeah,
like highly technical movement systems. And I am I'm not one of those people, like for whatever reason, especially when it comes to shoulder buttons. Um, I don't know if it's just like my brain doesn't properly communicate or my hands just don't work. But the moment I have to like push multiple shoulder buttons and face buttons, my hands basically just like lock up. Um, which is, for some games where they got rid of like quick time events, you can just hold or is a godsend for me.
yeah,
But like the complexity coming back a bit where you said like, there's only going to be, maybe a three combo or whatever. That sounds like it'll be fantastic for me. And I think I've already said I'm looking forward to it, but I think that kind of makes it even more on the list for me just because um it means I'm not as worried about what I won't be able to do.
yeah,
Uh so yeah, so thank you for walking through that. It sounds fantastic.
yeah. No problem. Um, there's definitely still you end up using most of the buttons on the controller, but I don't have you pressing as many at once generally. um, it's actually an interesting issue. One of the reasons I dropped Blazing Dynamo um, is because like man, this character short you like a lot. Um, this is probably going to be really hard to design levels that make use of this effectively for. um, Amongst other things, the main reason is just it's that along with just kind of trying to get the scope under control. I decided that it would be better um, if it would be better if I made a different game um, and got back to Blazing Dynamo. Because if I stripped, I like basically I had the idea of where I wanted Blazing Dynamo to be. I'm like, okay, this is too big for my first game. And then I pared it back and I did it about as much as I could. I'm like, okay, I think this is still too big. And if I pare it back, it's not going to be the game I wanted to make anymore. So I'll make a different game I want to make. Um, and that was a game that we haven't brought up yet called Goodnight Sunlight. You play as a little goblin girl. Um, and that's I'm actually still really happy with the character moveset there. Not that that does a lot for you because you can't see play it, but um, it's yeah, I think it's a lot more well fleshed out and cohesive than Buckets is. But basically that game also I was like, okay, this is I could probably do this in a year or two, but I don't know if I have that time and I need something smaller still. And that's what led me to make Goodnight. Sorry, Electrokinetic, which is still also a name I'm not entirely solid on if I should keep or not. But I mean, it's on Steam, but I could still change it if I wanted to. It'll probably stick around, but I don't know. But yeah, I've been through a bit there, but trying to most 3D platformers. All right, I'll back it up a little bit more. So, 3D platformers versus 2D platformers. There's an inherent discrepancy between, um, like, there's a huge discrepancy between what's possible with the levels and what the strengths of each medium are, right? Like, or I guess perspective. Um, 2D levels, you have much better sense of precision and control since there's no problem with depth perception. You know exactly where you are on the screen at all times and where you are relative to everything. However, it also it's arguably a little bit worse for speed if you look at Sonic, but I've also seen other games do it better just by controlling the camera more. Um, from the dev's perspective, controlling it more. And you also can't, just the fact that you can't see really too far ahead of you means it's worse for things like exploration to a degree and speed, where 3D platformers are a bit better at that. Because again, you can see where you're going, you can look out on the horizon and be like, oh, I want to do that thing, I want to reach that mountaintop or whatever, right, as it were. And usually, but it's it's harder to see because it's like depth perception. So it's a lot of 3D platformers, shift the focus from going sideways to going up to some degree, but also being more exploratory and open in nature is common. We didn't get a Mario game in 3D that felt like it was had the same level like design philosophy as the 2D Marios until 3D Land, which is quite a while after the N64. The 3D World is definitely a pretty good game still, but it's also isometric, so you lose out on certain aspects that are beneficial from 3D doing that. Although they can still, since they play with the camera a little bit sometimes, they can still benefit from like, oh, you can look over there and see that thing. But so we're going through line here. Sorry, I'm a little bit scatterbrained sometimes, and I can just kind of lose my own train of thought. Even though I'm writing on it, I just kind of like no clip out.
That's fine. Well, if it'll help, I can maybe, take us somewhere else for a bit and we can go back. Or if you found yourself, by all means.
Yeah, I guess just okay, yeah. So with a lot of 3D games, platformers, they don't lend themselves to pushing you to really use your advanced moveset tools, right? So like in 2D Mario game, you're often doing all these like crazy like challenges with your mechanics and using them in like interesting ways. But in like 3D Mario games, generally you can just get by just doing a normal jump across most things. And obviously it still involves the level mechanics and such. But you're not really required to ever do a long jump, basically, right? Like the game never actually asks you to do that, and sometimes it's weird. Like you have what is it, like a couple sections of Mario 64 where if you know how to press left trigger and A, you can just circumvent like a decent chunk of the level. Obviously it's a bit of a risk since you have less air control, it's more committal action and stuff, but still like that. And a lot of games, uh, and yeah, it is harder to design bespoke challenges when you have such an involved moveset as it keeps piling on and on in complexity because there's so much overlap. It's hard to communicate exactly like what you want the player to do or design in a way that they actually do the intended thing. And they don't necessarily have to do the specific intended sequence of events, but like if there's just like a really long gap, like what's the um but there's still only like a specific sequence to get by it. It might not be clear until you just like try out several things, unless it's assuming that that the level designer hasn't put more elbow grease into it to communicate what to do. But that sort of stuff is just part of the reason why I wanted to do some other smaller games first, so I could work on that. Electrokinetic unfortunately doesn't really let me work on that aspect. If I'm being perfectly honest, if I'm keeping it $100 with you, Electrokinetic is just kind of made again so I can like just get some income going, hopefully, and like not die. Um, and just try to support myself while I make Good Night Sunlight, and that's like my first like I don't want to say real game. My first game, I'm like I don't know.
Yeah, Ritz, I understand what you're trying to say, and it is like it's always difficult, right, to try and balance, having to eat and like chasing a passion project and
Yeah,
trying to like find the middle ground through all of it. And, it's not, if you're not strong at doing like level design, and that's not a shot, that's just a statement of, you
mm,
know, I imagine a lot of people that, want to make games probably aren't going to be strong at all aspects of it. So it's never a bad thing to step back and then find ways to um, practice or work towards improving your skills.
yeah,
Um, so like no, it makes perfect sense what you're trying to say, especially, the wanting to release a product to help fund further projects, right? Like I don't think anyone um should or could really fault you for that. And I don't think, they would be just it would be just really wrong of someone to try and do that. Um, so yeah, no, everything you're saying makes perfect sense. And hopefully, when you've hopefully you get to a point where you feel that you are better equipped to maybe go back to like Blazing Dynamo or revisit something like Blazing Dynamo where you have a character with a bunch of complex technical movements and then you can actually build levels around them. Because you're like when you were talking about Mario, I think the only Mario that the only 3D Mario in my mind that really put an emphasis on making sure you could in a way utilize the movement controls and like these and this one isn't even highly technical, but in Odyssey,
yeah,
with the 100,000 or whatever moons you could gather, some of them absolutely needed you to have a uh a competent understanding of how to do, like a wall jump throw to your hat and bounce off the hat and all this stuff, right?
yeah.
So like, in the frame of Mario, yeah, 100%. And it's I think what they demonstrated there is, well, you don't always need to flex the muscles that sometimes you can just to really kind of drive home to people that there's more to it than meets the eye. And I'm not. There's no way for me to really tie this back to what you said. There's two
Nah, it's
separate
fine.
strains of thoughts there going.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. I was just saying it's fine.
But yeah, no, like, I completely understand that. I think most people would, because, um, yeah, we got to, you got to eat. And, especially, if that means that you can also work towards, releasing more projects that you're passionate about, and continue to improve your skills, or your, um, like what you're capable of, uh, I don't think that's bad at all, right? I think that's how things should be approached in that, every new thing you do should in some way have some form of previous lessons that you had learned,
Oh yeah,
like imparted into it, right?
yeah, big time. Um, it's been a little bit of a I've been a little all over the place over these past couple of years. Messing with different projects and everything, figuring out what I want to do. Just learning about game dev. But I think I'm overall happy I did. Ah, ooh. Sorry, ear ringing all of a sudden. A little bit of tinnitus. Uh, okay. Sorry. Uh, talking about my projects. Yeah. I feel like I've. Oh God, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Give me a second. Okay, I think it's going away now. I'm gonna restart on that.
Sure thing.
Doing all of these projects over the past couple of years have helped me kind of. It's not a luxury everyone can have, and frankly, I was hoping I would have something out by now, honestly. But I still think it's been a lot of really good experiences. I've met a lot of really cool people putting out my stuff. A lot of devs that like, oh, like there's like, yeah, I made this thing, and I'm like, whoa, dude, I've wishlisted on Steam like months ago. It looks sick, and then they show me a bunch of other devs I meet secondhandly. And like, wow. Getting away from things a little bit there, but it's been a lot of really good experiences. I learned a lot about what I want and what I like and don't like as a dev. Um, I think there's like the classic like game dev like newbie trap, right? Is to start with your dream game. I think. Um, Now, obviously, it depends on what your dream game is. If your dream game is, making the Pong clone because you're insane, then you know what, go for it. But if your dream game is making, that Dragon MMO RPG, then maybe we scale it back a little bit. And for me, my dream game was actually I talk a lot about platformers. It was actually an action game, something like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. Um, and you can see me finally getting to do some of that in Stratosphere. I don't know. I guess you probably didn't play that one either.
I've seen some videos of it, but no, I haven't had a chance to try it yet myself.
For context, Stratosphere, I entered a 32-bit jam, 32-bit game jam, so stuff that looks like an PS1, Sega Saturn, and while not technically 32-bit, the N64 style was also accepted. Um, but it was just kind of a 3D beat 'em up inspired by something like Smash Bros, but also Devil May Cry. But it still has a lot of it has a big focus on movement still, because that's just kind of in my DNA at this point. Um, it was very cool to get to work on that, and this is my most finished package so far, even if it's still only like maybe 15-20 minutes to beat at that, if that. But it's decently replayable. Somebody told me they played it through like 5 times, just getting better at it each time. Like, dude, I love hearing that. It's so cool. Describe like all the different steps to that. But yeah, what I would say is if you want to get like started with like dev stuff, take your dream game and slice off like a little chunk of it, something that's you can like actually like chew on. Um, just like the smallest like aspect that you could work on as its own like project. So if you want to make like an RPG, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, right? There's quest design, there's combat, there's dialogue, there's world design, exploration, etc., etc. You could pick any one of those things and just make a game about that, right? I could just make a game about dialogue. I could just make a game about exploration. I could just make a game about combat. Yeah. Um, and then I'm sure you'll have some if you can control your scope creep. That's an amazing skill a lot of people don't have already. Um, but if you can just work on one of those, and then like maybe even if again it can be a small project, it can be again just a 15-minute experience about like walking around a town and like kind of like I don't know like adventure gaming it would probably be a big boon to your RPG. We're just making like a 30-minute experience in like RPG Maker about and figuring out stuff about combat designs will teach you a lot uh, that you probably might not get trying to just like do everything all at once from scratch. Um, but just a vector that you're still interested in, I think, is relevant because it gets brought up a lot in these circles to like make something like Pong or Breakout because they're simple and they'll get you to grips with things. And for some people that does work. I've even seen people make their Breakout clone into something more interesting and then still put it up on stores. I don't know how many of them do well if that's the thing you care about, but for a lot of people they don't really want to do that. I didn't want to do that. What what actually got me to make a 3D platformer is the year, I think 2017 was it? Jesus Christ, was it 2017? Yeah, it was the year Mario Odyssey came out, which is the year the Switch came out. Holy shit. The thing that got me to work on a 3D platformer was Mario Odyssey and Hat in Time both came out that year, relatively close to each other. And I'm like, man, you know, 3D platformers are pretty cool actually. Like I've liked them, since I was a wee bab. But I'm just like, damn, just kind of rekindled my the fire there. And then later on, I played a game called MacBat 64. And it is a very tiny game, as still a 3D platformer. It's basically a Nintendo 64, like little like love letter museum thing. But it's very small. It's like an hour maybe, and it is very mechanically unintense. It's more of like uh almost like an interactive museum than like a video game. It's video game. There's not a lot going on there, but it's not to discredit it. It's still a good, nice little experience, and it's a done one. The developer now, Ciactro, is actually very prolific now. He's put out several small 3D platformers. One came out last year, Super Kiwi 64. It was a good little bite-sized experience, and again, not very hard, but a lot more going on mechanically, which was nice. But yeah, I played MacBat, and I'm like, man, I could do this. I could do this. And hey, I still haven't technically, so Ciactro wins again there. But it did inspire me to take up arms again. I had tried messing with Unreal before, but I kind of bounced off of it. But that's what made me go, you know what? I should give it another shot because a game can be anything. It doesn't have to be this mechanically, ridden mess. It could just be a nice little experience. You jump around some cute little levels, like an hour, and then you're done. Or it could be, just a little conversation you have someone, and you just have several dialogue choices or whatever. You just walk around the house. I don't know. It could be anything. Or it could be a 200-hour RPG. Yeah.
So, that's pretty interesting that, it was someone else releasing their own game or their own kind of series of little games, I guess you'd say, that kind of inspired you to say, no, I can do this too, and like get into doing what looks like your own little several several setups of prototypes where from what it sounds like have been like progressive steps of you trying different things, like um with with Stratosphere being, a kind of take on like a Devil May Cry or a combo like fighter, juggler, um, Electrokinetic being kind of like a ran gen, well, quote unquote ran gen, proc gen or what have you, layout for the levels, and then all of them being probably, from the sounds of it, or I would assume based around the like technical movement skills. So, I think that's really interesting that that's the approach you've taken, because, like you've said, you're making little games, little experiences that are, iterative from project to project to project, where you're just always going to be, increasing your skills. So, that's a really interesting approach to take. And, I've heard something like that before. Um, numerous times, but not in those words. But
Yeah.
to kind of focus what you want to do and start small, not to try and go for like your magnum opus right out the gate. Or if you do try and go for your magnus opus right out the gate, maybe um like you've kind of played with, step back and say, okay, well, this is good for now. Maybe in the future I can come back to this.
Yeah.
Um, so like I think that's good advice for anyone that listens to don't try and just go for broke. Do not try and do that massive dragon MMO and then get incredibly defensive when people try and say maybe you should, scope yourself back and learn how to model something before you jump right in. For those that aren't aware of what the Dragon MMO is, just go to Google and just type like Dragon MMO Reddit and have fun with whatever you find. That'll you'll find, I'm sure you'll find the thread. It'll be a fun one to go through. um I don't know whatever happened to that person. I hope they are doing well, because they got absolutely thrashed
I didn't know there was
in the.
actually like a specific like big story about this. I've just kind of heard like the joke about that.
Oh, no, so no, it wasn't just a joke. That wasn't like a satirical statement that was thrown around. What happened was I want near 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Basically someone went like, I'm going to start doing game dev. This is what I'm going to do, and it's going to be this big MMO where you can transform into dragons or something like that. And they got repeatedly told to, maybe mind their scope, not let scope creep get in. And they didn't know how to do any programming, didn't know how to do any game dev, didn't know
Ooh.
how to do like anything.
Ooh.
And like they
Tough.
set out from the get-go to do that. And basically it was and I say they got absolutely thrashed, and it's because they did, but it wasn't like someone just took them out back and started smacking them around. It
Yeah, yeah,
was
of course.
repeatedly people that know better trying to like ground them, and this person just got more and more defensive and more defensive. And after a while, I don't remember what happened, but it was an experience to go through.
Yeah,
um
as you kept talking about, like, it sounds like you're talking about something specific here.
yes, yeah, yeah. So that now that's kind of like a joke. It's kind of a meme. I know that, but that was an actual event.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever want to read about that, Google, I'm sure will find it for you. Um, it is a, it was a trip. Now, Ritz, we've talked about a bunch of different things actually. You kind of covered a bunch of different questions in different forms, in different ways. So
Yeah, I'm a little all over the place sometimes. Sorry about
no,
that.
no worries. However, I am curious.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, can you maybe like tell me about your favorite game and, what you feel that favorite game, like why that game sets it apart from other games?
Favorite game. That is a tough one. Um, I guess I don't know if I necessarily mm, say it's my favorite. Sorry, I'm just considering other options. Um, but kind of like one of my go-to, and partially just because it's very underrated, is the Wonderful 101. Um, I really like that game. It is uh, it's a Platinum Games game. And it's isometric view. It's an action game, as they are wont to do. It gets compared to Pikmin a little bit. The pitch is that you are basically a superhero team, like Power Rangers, Super Sentai kind of thing, and you're controlling 100 dudes at once. Which sounds weird. But it basically, and it like some people have compared it to Pikmin because it's like similar top-down perspective. You're all tiny little dudes. You're not really micromanaging them as much though. You just kind of you use your team to draw out weapons. To, so you could say if you use the right stick, you can use the touchscreen as well, but it sucks. Don't do that. Um, it was originally a Wii U game. Now it's on modern platforms, Switch, PC. I had a Kickstarter for it. I backed it. You can draw stuff with the right sticks. You can draw a straight line for sword, draw a circle for a punch, fist, like a right angle for a gun, and there's like a bunch of other ones. But I don't know. I just Wonderful 101 is just a really nice package. It's there's I don't know if I'd say it does any one specific thing well, the best, but I just really like it overall as a game. It's also very meaty for like a character action kind of action game. One thing I guess that's interesting about it is it gets away with. I don't know if you're familiar with the DMC reboot game that happened.
I am familiar with it. I haven't had the experience with it yet.
No,
I don't know if that's the right way to put that.
that's you haven't played it. Um, that game is infamous for many things, but one of the somewhat more minor ones. There's a section where they get into colored enemies. You have an angel weapon and a demon weapon, devil weapon, what have you. But at a point in the game, they say, no, you can't use your. You also have a normal just basic sword that's not affiliated with either side. They say, no, you can't use uh, 2 of 3 of your weapon types on these enemies at all. If when you try to hit them, your weapon bounces off, breaks your combo, everything sucks. Nobody liked this mechanic basically. Wonderful 101 sort of has that, but it's done in a much better way because it's more of a suggestion and it's not it doesn't take whole moveset out of the equation. A lot of enemies will kind of have a bit of a almost like a rock paper scissors, like, hey, if I'm doing this or if I'm this type of enemy, you should use this weapon against me right now. And you don't necessarily have to do that, but it makes it easier if you just in that moment react properly and use the right weapon type. And then it just opens them up to um, you can now do whatever. And I just bring it up because I feel like it's become a little bit of a taboo to like try and like ever like limit what a player can do in a character action game. Um, I know Doom Eternal also came under fire somewhat similarly because it's like, oh, um, for this enemy, you should use this weapon in this way. But a lot of times, it is still just like a suggestion, and you can actually get away from that if you're willing to experiment more and get creative. But that is just like the obvious solution. I wish I could remember more of those, but I've only played Doom Eternal through one time, and it was a little while ago now. An example for Wonderful 101 is, say, there's an enemy that is a big dragon, and at some point he will close his wings up and it basically becomes invulnerable. And they want you to what is it? You can make claws by drawing a zigzag, and if you use the claws, you can literally open him up and then go to town on him, and it's fine. There's a lot of stuff like it gives everything a distinct purpose, which is a hard thing to get um, with character action games, getting people to use specific weapons or tool sets, which is, to bring it back, a problem again I've felt a little bit in this platformer hell of trying to make everything or incentivize players to use their full kit and not just do a jump and a dive. So yeah, no. But Wonderful 101 has a lot of cool stuff. It's got a lot of cool stage gimmicks, very good boss fight. It's got, it doesn't have like the best story, but it's executed well enough. Except for Luca, I hate him. Platinum Games and characters named Luca do not have a good track record. But yeah, what is it? It's good.
Well, thank you. Sorry.
Oh, it's I don't know if it's necessarily a game for everyone, but I think if you like it, you'll really like it. if you do play it, I don't know if this necessarily helps, but the thing I hear a lot, and I agree that helps, is just think of the inputting the weapons like fighting game inputs rather than drawing. I think it starts to make a little more sense.
Well, thank you for that perspective on it. And I missed my chance to pick it up when it was on the Wii U because I'm legitimately probably one of like the few people that actually has Wii U in the
Yeah,
grand
high
scheme of
five.
things. Um, Now to be very clear, I was not one of the people that bought it and added to Nintendo's confidence in the system.
Mm,
Um, I actually got it at I actually got it at a strike of dumb luck. Um,
huh.
in Canada, when Target was briefly here, um, they had accidentally priced it at like half off at like $150
Oh hell yeah!
for one of like the 350 $400 models. And then, through a chain of events, managed to like get it at that price. But at this point, it was already on its last leg. So, I own one out of the sheer um, nonsensical nature that I was able to pick it up for like $150, not
Yeah,
because I
snatch it
had
up.
faith in the system.
That's
Um,
fair.
but yeah, no, I missed my chance to pick it up then. And it's been kind of on my radar. So, it sounds, the way you put it, thinking of it more as like fighting game inputs than anything else, that seems like a better approach to have.
Yeah,
Um,
they definitely pushed for like the you can draw the shape you want on the gamepad, but it's not really how you're supposed to, and I don't think they honestly think that either. It's just kind of like a push to because Nintendo like wants to sell the console more, right? Um, but yeah, it's definitely just you flick your thumb, you draw the thing with that, and you keep going. It's not that bad. The game had a bit of a somewhat infamously bad demo because it just didn't teach you how to play the game very well at all. Um, yeah, it's I do appreciate though games that are, and I think this is what I also strive to do. Games that jive a lot more with certain people, um, and some people will probably just bounce off, rather than games that are for everyone. Because I think if you make a product for everyone, it's kind of a watered down product. Um, I don't think a game that's forever. Oh, that's not true. A lot of people are like, oh man, God of War is like best game ever. But generally speaking, games that are for everyone are just a little bit less. I don't know, distinct for just. I guess just distinct.
I understand what you're saying, and yeah, like there is a lot to be said about games that can be made to have as wide of appeal as possible, but I think the um sometimes the amount of like watering down is what really sets the difference between a game being over. I don't think overdone's the right word. Um,
Like over designed.
uh, maybe like over designed to be as appealable as possible to everyone, kind of thing. Maybe. Um, but yeah, no, I know what you're saying, and like sometimes a game is incredibly watered down, and you know it's it pushes it a little too far in terms of what's going like you go too far to the one end and you're gonna kind of put off the people on the other end, and it's a more matter of finding that like middle ground where you appeal to uh like the new audience or make it as playable for the new audience, but at the same time still have a lot of stuff for like people that want more. I think the best way to put it is probably like, oh no, it was in my head and then it's gone right away. Um, I
Oh,
think
you
like
too.
yeah, exactly, me too. I think the best way to put it is that it's like something that's easy to learn, hard to master. That's what it was. Um, and I think like that's probably the sweet spot for making games as accessible as possible, in that it's easy to play, easy to get through if that's all you want to do, right? But if you want to master it, you're going to have to put the work in. Um, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely an elegance to certain things. I have some interesting feelings about that whole situation too. Like on one hand, making these like very like complex and deep move sets. Um, I uh, I have a yearning and respect for games that can do a lot with a little. Um, uh, like Celeste has a lot you can do with just like the three buttons, right? You just have jump, dash, and grab, but the way that they use those, especially just the dash, all the different like movement techniques they get out of that, lends itself very well to just all sorts of shenanigans. It it I feel like it's I don't because it also gets into the idea of making games as a product, right? Depending on how much of an issue that is, if you're not as concerned with making a game that is trying to sell and appeal to audiences, it can be a great place to mess with things that are a little bit less intuitive or a little bit less what is it easy to pick up. And I think you can get into some interesting zones there. Interesting ideas can be made once you stop putting that as like a forefront idea. It is a good principle, and I think once you're actually trying to make a game for other people, it's good to try and make things as accessible as possible without compromising the core of the game, right? The heart of it. Um, there's a lot of stuff like I don't know. Obviously, what is it? A lot of people when now I don't know how you feel about the infamous Dark Souls. A lot of people did not like how Dark Souls played when it first came out, and I guess still when you first get your hands on it after playing other action games, because Dark Souls is a lot more slow and plodding and methodical comparatively. A little bit less so now these days, um, but it's a lot of people thought it was weird and didn't like it. But now it's a beloved series, and if Elden Ring is like the second best selling game of last year, I think, after Call of Duty. um, but that's a huge accomplishment. I just think there's a lot of exploration to be done for games as a medium, and sometimes putting such a huge focus on keeping things accessible and digestible for a broader audience can really hurt. What is it? I don't want to say hurt the medium. I guess can kind of hold it back a little bit if that's the only thing that everyone's doing, right? Again, not to say it's a bad thing to do, but just like no one method should reign supreme, right? I'm kind of in a similar spot with like I feel like there's a big overabundant focus on like making realistic like hyper realism and like big budget game graphics, and I don't have a problem with them sometimes, but I think there's too much of a focus on them. I really think some of these games could stand to be a little more stylized, and instead of, I feel like we're kind of moving away from stylization. I don't know why Sonic the Hedgehog has like hyper realistic like Quixel like rock scans in his game. I don't think he really needs that, you know. Um, but hey, it is what it is. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like weird ideas for games. A lot of times, those weird and specific or unintuitive ideas can lead to other more intuitive ones later. But you got to have those first, right? You got to have those awkward steps first before you get to something smooth and elegant. You know. Um,
Yeah, and I understand, I understand what you were saying before, and one of the things that came to mind was like the was when like whittling things down, um, what came to mind was like the I forget the Wizard College or whatever in Skyrim, where that stuck out like a to me, that stuck out like a sore thumb in terms of they did that so that everyone could do it no matter what. And that might not always be the best approach. In this case, I don't feel it was. Like
Yeah.
if you aren't a remotely magic player, like there's no reason a barbarian should be able to go through the magic quest line. Because previous entries in Elder Scrolls where were, if you were a big bulky player that had no brains and just hit things, the Fighters Guild is where you were going to go. You weren't going to be doing the wizarding stuff. You weren't going to be doing the alchemy. You weren't going to be a thief because you were you're not going to see you're not going to see a big bulky barbarian sneaking across the shadows somewhere. No, you're just going to look, oh, there's Jim, the big dude. Get him out of here, right? You're going to
Or the
catch him right
butcher.
away. Um but no, like I get what you're saying there, and yeah, there's lots of approaches, and I think some of them definitely need more finesse applied to them because like I understand in games where they want to make it so that everyone can do things, and they don't want to make it so people feel like they can't achieve certain things, but at the same time, uh, I think having real agency and consequence for that agency is never a bad thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, games at their core, I guess, are about making choices or interactive, right? Um, but if you try to homogenize everyone's experience as much as possible, it kind of becomes indistinct, like right. Like now, it's just a movie or whatever. If I'm not making any choices, uh, choices can be, gameplay. Like it can just be purely gameplay as well. Or rather, like even if it's like a completely like a linear game with a set series of events, I'm still making meaningful gameplay choices. It's fine, but
Yeah, exactly. Now, Ritz, we've talked a lot about games the
Oh,
last, a little bit. So I am curious, outside of games, what other hobbies do you have? Like what kind of things do you enjoy that aren't game related? And if the answer is you only enjoy game related things, well, that's also valid too. But I like to ask just because, if you like playing guitar or whatever, like to know more about you as a person, not just the game dev.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think it's important as a creator to be well-rounded and to have other things you do outside of uh your main medium, I guess. Um, no, that doesn't mean that I am a particularly well-rounded individual. I'm still finding myself in a lot of ways. Um, but I do think it's a good thing to have. What is it like? A more interesting life and like experiences leads to more interesting output for stuff like that. I think. Um. Oh, yeah. I guess the only no, that's not true. One thing is I really like cooking. Cooking's right. Probably gonna bake some cookies later today. Uh, I bought myself a nice big wok for Christmas with some money I got from family. Um, went to the Asian mart the other week, made some dumplings for the first time. Those turned out pretty good. They last a while. You make a lot of food out of like a pound of beef and some veggies, man. That shit lasts you for weeks, a month. I don't know. It's good though. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I made like a pork roast. What is it? No, like a loin. You could take like a big huge chunk of pork and you like chop it up like in the spiral, and you put some delicious innards in there. You wrap it back up with the butcher's twine, tie it up. then you bake it. Pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not like an expert chef or anything, but I try to I try to challenge myself a bit here and there. Every every month I try to, not actively, but I just kind of end up making something new. I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. Um, interesting flavors. Like I like a peanut satay sauce or something. No, I'm probably not saying that right. I don't know. At the Asian market too, it's good. I bought bottles of fish sauce. Some things that were called fish sauce, but looked entirely different. One is like a very like loose, like like watery, like looks like soy sauce. The other one just looks like, I have to assume, was just like ground up fish. It is like thick and opaque. Um, yeah,
Are you meaning like fish paste, maybe?
no, it still says fish sauce on it. It's not
Oh,
quite
well,
like a paste, but like it's a lot more viscous than the other one.
I've never seen. I'm gonna have to look for this now, just because now I'm curious as well. Only because like I'm familiar with fish sauce. I think most people that have done any kind of like Asian inspired cooking are familiar with that. But I've never seen it be, like viscous or like thick. It's always the liquid, right? Like that's the one that I think I and most people are used to. So next time I go to like a TNT market. Um, I don't know if they have those where you are. In for my area, for Canada at least, they are. It's like a big Asian grocery store kind of thing.
Yeah,
But no, I'm gonna have to look for that now in the future, just to like put eyes on it, because that sounds. Um, I don't know how it would be used. It sounds interesting.
yeah.
I'll
Because I
go
was like
with
looking,
that.
I'm like, okay, this thing says that it calls for fish sauce. I'm like, oh, okay, fish sauce. And I'm like, wait, this looks a lot more. This other thing that says fish sauce looks a lot more like what people are talking about. What is this other thing? And I bought it anyway because I'm like, I'm curious. I haven't actually used it yet. But uh, yeah, it's been good. I've been making I don't know. Made a lot of stir fries lately. I don't. There was it had a nice like just, I guess it was just like scrap beef package at the Asian market. And that was great value. That was like almost 2 pounds of meat for like $3.50. Uh, there was like there's some variation. There were some pieces that were very like marbled. I don't exactly know what cut that is, but it was good. Stir fry, what is it? Thin meat's hard to cook right though. It's you get that thing in there, the hot pan for like 30 seconds, and you're like, oh, I gotta take that out.
That is definitely a thing that I think well, for me, I don't like pan frying a lot of things, especially chicken. I hate trying to pan fry chicken myself.
Mm,
Um just because for me it's either undercooked or overcooked. I can't, I personally never am able to like find that middle ground. I know some people are really good at it, but like for me um it's either raw or it's burned. Um, but no, when it comes to thinner stuff, yeah, that's especially the thinner pieces that are made to like just um I'm gonna say poach, quote unquote, where like you're supposed to put it in like like ramen or something like that, where you literally
right,
just dip
right.
it in and it like just immediately cooks.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Really
that stuff is terrifying trying to cook that one,
intense.
because like if you put it in there, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go and like clean the knife or something, it's burnt, it's done. You missed your chance,
Yeah,
it's gone.
it is a chewy piece of now. Yeah, no, it's good fun though, and it tastes good. So it's just if everybody likes food by default. If you don't, you're a freak. Um, yeah, what is it? But yeah, aside from that, I draw. Um, what is it? Obviously, that ties back into my game dev. Before like a couple of years ago, if you asked me what I was, I'd say I'm a character artist, I guess. Not like a particularly good one, but I'm all right. Especially now that I've been on this dev thing, I've kind of stagnated in my active like draftsmanship. Um, haven't really had a lot of time to sit down and just practice. I'd really like to get better after this game. I kind of want to take a little break and just kind of focus on doing some studies for like a month or two. Honestly, um, we'll see if that works out or not. But yeah, I mean, drawing is what got me started on the whole creative thing. I was just, what is it? I'm in school. I'm like, man, this sucks. I'm gonna like draw like this Naruto card I have. Uh, and then people were like, hey, that's pretty good. So I was like, hey man, can I buy it off you for like $50? I'm like, nah, man, this is mine. I should have taken the fucking $50. It was already drawn. That would have stretched me so far. But I was so proud of it. Um, I think I still have it in a folder somewhere now, actually, as well as most of my art from back when I was in school. But yeah, eventually, I came out of school and I'm like, man, all right, what skills do I have? And I looked at all the things I did in school and I went, I guess I got this drawing thing, and I kept doing that. Um, Eventually, that led to me, having an interest in things that are like offshoots of just drawing, so animation, 3D modeling. Um, And when I did try to do game dev, can't escape it. Uh, I did try to do game dev. I had those as a boon to help me out. Um, what is it? Uh, Character design is something that like if there's like a thing that I had to pick to like that's like my I scream on the rooftops about. Um, I think character design in recent times for video games, like on the whole, not great. I feel like a lot of people just aren't trying. Um, maybe I'm just being a jerk about it, but I don't know. I see stuff like there was a photo or a picture. Someone did a fan art of like modern like Sony mascots. Um, and there was like Kratos, Nathan Drake, Aloy, and then Spider-Man there, and he just stuck out like a sore thumb. I'm like, like Spider-Man is a like an iconic, like timeless, like simple, recognizable character. And then you just have these three like crusty adventurers that like I don't know. Obviously, I'm not. The fact that they're crusty is fine. But like they're just not like Nathan Drake is like a guy in like a blue shirt and like slacks, you know. Aloy is just she's just got so much like stuff going on. I don't know. I don't like the color blocking. Like I think about like truly good, maybe not good, but like this is obviously a highly subjective field because there's stuff like I don't know. Some people absolutely love how Warframes look. I'm lukewarm on them. Some of them are cool, but a lot of them just look very busy to me and hard to parse visually. Um, Stuff like the worst of it's probably like NetherRealm, the guys who make like Injustice and Mortal Kombat. Their stuff is so busy, and I don't know why they handle superheroes because superheroes are like simple and graphic and colorful, and they just make them look like they're covered in like over-designed paintball gear a lot of the time. um, it's gotten a little bit better at points, but other times, um, it's here and there. And this is part of this ties back into my lamenting about realism. Um, but I mean, even in indie games too, a lot of times, like there's a game like, hey, in this game, you play as a normal mushroom. There's nothing about them. They are just a mushroom, and or like, it's a popular one right now, frogs. There's a lot of frogs. Not a problem. I wish more of them were visually distinct. Um, a lot of them are just like, here's a little cartoon frog, or here's a little cartoon frog with like a scarf. Like, that's cute. It is. But I wish there was a little more pizzazz, just a little something to make him more of a distinct character. Like, I feel like you're just doing yourself a disservice, really, because like, again, it's less, it's more generic, it's less iconic, it's less recognizable. It's just less interesting. which is the main. I honestly don't even care about the marketing stuff as much, or angle of it. That's just a bonus. I just like things that are interesting. Um, one of my friends is working on a game called Jamphibian, and he also has a frog game, hence the titular Jamphibian. But he's got more of a distinct look to him. He's like red. He's like not. He's like kind of tall, not tall, but he's still like stout. He's got on this cool jacket. He's got like a boombox on his back, and he's got a look. He's distinct. He is that. He doesn't actually have a name, but he's the Jamphibian, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. I try very hard to make all of my character designs as good as I can, personally. While also adhering to the values I have. Obviously, there's no like distinct set of thing that makes a character good. Like, you want to get your fundamentals. You want to have a distinct silhouette. You want to have good color blocking. You want them to read well in gameplay, stuff like that. Shape language that communicates your character, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, your influences will inform what the character really looks like and the things you like, and that's cool. And please put those in. Don't just make it like, hey, I like Banjo Kazooie, so my character is just going to be an animal, and they go what. Please mix up your inspirations. I'm begging you. Ugh, I could I could go on and on and on about character design. But yeah, just I think I have a somewhat varied lineup, despite the fact that they're all like short scrimblos, basically, aside from VT, which is the protagonist for Stratosphere. But I honestly, I look back at my current character lineup, and I'm relatively satisfied. Like, I don't think like I'm a master at this or anything, but I make stuff that I like, of course, and I try my best to make it something that other people will like too. Um, Within the realm of thing, because it's like if I just made the thing, I'd just make a pretty lady every time, and that's it, and I wouldn't think about it anymore. But I also want them to be like a character that's like interesting and has their own like context that they exist in, and like presumed life up to that point. I try to communicate that all through the design, right? Um, I don't know. It's not a necessity, of course. Plenty of character designs aren't especially distinct, and then the game will still get big or whatever. What is it like? Hat Kid is just Toon Link in a hat with a cape. That's not even me being like necessarily reductive. Like that's like basically literally how she started out. She didn't even have the hat at first. That came later. She was just Kid, I guess. Um, but yeah. I don't know. Just do something cool, do something interesting. Whatever your first idea is, hold on to that, but maybe push it to the side for now. Just try something else. Try something weird. Even if you don't end up using it, it'll be good. It'll be good that you did that experimentation, that you took that walk, that you saw what was on that side of the bridge. Because it might inform that what you do want to do more. Or maybe you can just reuse it for something else. There's a lot of angles. I'm kind of I don't know if you noticed, I kind of like gained more energy when I talked about this. I really care a lot about character design, and I could probably talk for a whole podcast length just on this, probably several, frankly. But um, yeah, I'll leave it there.
And that's never a bad thing to be passionate about something. Like you said, it's very apparent that you are passionate about character design. And I don't disagree with what you were saying about how you felt your characters that you had made for your games are, aren't, sorry, what's the right word? How do I want to phrase it? That you feel you did a good job making them visually distinctive and unique. And I don't disagree with you because they 100% are. You know, they are, all over the place isn't the right word, or the right phrase. But they are unique, but like they're not the same. It's not like you just recolored. It's not like Mario to Luigi kind of thing where you just sort of tweaked it a little, made one a little taller, changed it to green, and called it a day.
Yeah.
Um, and I understand what you're saying, about maybe put your first one aside. And I think, there's nothing wrong with having multiple versions of something while you're preparing. And I say that from the standpoint of like, I have a degree in graphic design. And, I know especially as any other like designer would, or any creative would, that your first, what is it? Your first, like your first product, I guess you'd say, like the first thing that you do, like you do multiple tests. You don't just marry yourself to a single one,
Yes, yes.
because that's silly. You should explore a little. You should be a little more creative, see what you can do, because
Yeah.
just because like if you marry yourself to the first thing you do, you're gonna, in the end, at the long run, you're just gonna restrict yourself because you're not going to allow yourself to explore. Like,
Yes. Yes.
you could pop out a character and be like, well, I like these elements from it, and you could try something new and incorporate more of what you liked from that, or you could go somewhere completely different. So yeah, so I agree completely. Like if, after you do your first design, your first whatever, maybe put it to the side and give it another shot. Give it a few more shots, like, you know, pop out a few drafts. Like what's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna spend an hour sketching stuff up and, maybe not have anything else you want to explore, or maybe you'll realize, oh, you know, if I just add a hat to this kid, it'll change up a lot of things, right? So, yeah, I agree completely. Don't marry yourself to your first design. Don't marry yourself to your second design. Pop out a few drafts, do a few roughs, figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to explore, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
I don't even think Milton Glaser, a very predominant dominant designer, I don't even think he would marry his first design. Um, I just don't think that's a thing. So yeah, 100%. I agree completely. Let yourself have the ability or time to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, that applies to things, a lot of things, even outside of fucking character design. Whether it's any creative endeavor, writing music, uh, making making a level, a game idea, whatever. A lot of times, your first draft will be it's a lot of things. It's got a lot of baggage associated with it. It depends on how long it's been in your head. But say it's an idea that you've been thinking about on and off for like a few months or something, right? As a lot of things are. Maybe just all day. You've been thinking about this thing. You've been at work. Like, oh man, I gotta make this thing. And you get home. You've already kind of married yourself a little bit to what is probably the first draft just by thinking about it that much. It's what is it? It's the thing that's a little bit. It probably lends itself well to what you like. It probably is a little bit obvious, but it is something that you're fond of. It's going to be hard to get away from that, but you should. It's important to, like you said, make that exploration. Get away from that. The phrase "kill your darlings." Um, you don't have to kill it, but it's good to maybe just put them in a box for a little bit. Put your darling in a box. Um, just not think about them. Just try take the high concept for whatever it is you're doing, and just push it in a completely different direction. Ask if what needs to be obvious or what needs to be here, what doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. Sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, again, I completely agree. I understand. I think many creatives probably, will also, that'll resonate with them.
Yeah.
Now, Ritz, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know that, you said when we first started talking you were tired. You also had mentioned that you were probably going to go and make cookies later. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I want to let you
No, I'm
either
having fun. It's fine.
well, still, I want to let you know. I want to let you get on with your Friday.
Sure. Sure.
Make some cookies, have a nap, or what have you. However, if there was anything else you want to discuss, a cool game, or what else you're working on, or just something you feel more people should just be aware of, by all means, the floor is yours. And as well, please let everyone know where they can find more information about you, which I'll also include in the episode description.
Oh, yeah, sure. So you can, for an indeterminable amount of time, you can find me on Twitter. We'll see how the state of the site is going forward. At uh, Rittzler, just as a as I am basically everywhere. Rittzler. You can find me on itch.io as well there. Tumblr I've kind of started to use, and you can find my game Electrokinetic on Steam. Um, I'd appreciate a wish list if it looks interesting. If you think you'd buy it, you know. I'm not gonna say do it right now. You have to, but I would appreciate it. I see the number go up sometimes. Um. Uh. But yeah. Aside from that, I don't know. I've been I've been starting up some games. I tried. I bought. We had the Steam winter sale. I bought a bunch of stuff on there. I've only played a few still, but what is it? There's Thymsia? Thymisia? I don't know how you say it. It's an indie Souls like game. One of the better ones as far as the combat is concerned. Although it's kind of a very strange health system. There's like two health bars. They're overlapping and like they're recharging. I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to explain. I played a Roller Drome, which is a very interesting game to me. I don't know if you know that one.
I'm familiar with it. It's a game where you play, where you're on roller skates and
Yep,
you're
yep.
going around like a battle dome shooting robots and such, and then you have to like kind of do that while Tony Hawking your way around
Yeah,
to unlock the next step of the level or something, right?
you're basically Tony Hawk with a shotgun. You're kind of in like almost a like a Doom arena, but instead you're on roller skates instead, and there's half pipes, and you do tricks to reload your gun. And that last part is actually the thing that made me go, "Oh, okay." There's like a game design thing here. It's not just like you are not literally just Tony Hawk, but you have a shotgun. There's a through line here. They thought about it. That's good. Um, I played it. It's interesting. I like it. I need to finish it. But it's pretty cool. I'm not a huge third-person shooter guy. Well, I guess I'm not a huge shooter guy in general, but I'll definitely play them if they catch my eye. There's some really good ones out there. I mentioned Doom earlier, of course. That kind of breathed new life into the modern shooter. I feel like, and then Ultra Kill took that breath and went on like a marathon with it. Um, and Roller Drum is also doing some interesting stuff. Um, it's got a also a movement game because again, skate park movement, Tony Hawk. Um, so that's also I would also like to make it like a third person like movement shooter type thing, but I think I'd approach it very differently. It's it's got like this like a proximity based like auto aim, so where if you only auto aim if you're close enough to things. Um, but as well as a like a slow mo aim mode that's somewhat common in shooters. Um, to help you to help compensate for the fact that you're moving around so much and everything. Uh, but it's cool. All the enemies are perfectly still, which is very funny since you're you're you know moving and grooving on these roller skates and everything. I was just kind of like waiting for you to get close or hit you with a sniper rifle. But it's sensible because it'd probably be really hard to shoot them otherwise. You do have the auto aims. I don't know. I'm curious if they ever break that as the game goes forward. I'm guessing not, but maybe for like a boss. I don't think the game has bosses, not so far anyway. Um, but yeah, that game's cool. I don't know. I bought Grapple Dog. That's a good one so far. Just a 2D uh 2D platform where grappling hook. It's very cute. Very succinct, very tight game. A lot of 2D platformers are honestly. Neon White, of course. A lot of people talking about that one. Very excited to get to that at some point. Uh, play the Gravity Circuit demo. It's a very good, kind of like Mega Man, maybe Smash inspired game. But you're like you're a melee focused character instead of having a gun. The level design though is the real thing. I really like the level design of that game. It's very a lot of the mechanics. They have a big stickler of like trying to really have a mechanic and then do like 10 different things with it. Not just in like the context that it's used, but like the mechanic like builds on itself for like other stuff. Like as an example, there's like in the first level, there's like electric floors that will shock you, but there's also this can happen just from the environment, but in most cases it happens from something else hitting it. So an enemy will shoot a projectile that's electrified, and if it hits the floor, the whole floor is suddenly electrified, and you have to not be on it when that happens. Or maybe there's a laser firing at it, and then the laser um, will make the whole floor electrified for as long as it's on. But also the lasers can bounce around, and then all like all this other stuff. So it's cool. The way the mechanics of the stage intertwine and everything. They have a very good head for level design, and excited for that game to come out fully. Um, I'll cut it off there as far as games that I was playing. Um, Games I think more people should know about. Um, I mean, well, I guess at the very least, I can plug some of my friends who are making some very cool games. There's Vernal Edge on Steam. It's a 2D Metroidvania like character action game. It's coming out very soon. I think with like the next like few months. I don't think there's an exact date lined up on the store page, but fairly soon. There's a demo out now. You can play it though if you want. It's got like a 3D overworld, which is different for a Metroidvania, like a level select kind of, but you can still it's open ended still, to a degree. It's very cool though, and you should give it a try. There's Double Shake. That's like if you've played, I don't know if you've played like Tomba or like Mischief Makers or Klonoa or any of those like PS1, PS2 era games. But it draws inspiration from like all of those. Uh, they had a Kickstarter a while back. Both of these games have to have Kickstarters actually. Double Shake had a Kickstarter a while back, and then they put out, and they had a demo there. They put out a new demo, and man, it is a glow up in so many ways, and it's only gotten better from there. They've told me they're like, oh man, yeah, the old demo kind of sucks, but which I can agree with. By the way, not that the old demo sucks, or I can empathize with. Like as much as you liked playing Dynamo, I actually don't like going back to that game very much anymore. A lot of things about it I don't like. I still do like a lot of things about it too, but I'm like, ugh. Like even just the jump physics are weird to me. They're kind of slow. Like I don't like the curve on it now. Part of that's because I thought I was messing with the curve, and I had like placebo tricked myself into thinking I had, because I was young and stupid, and now I'm marginally less so of both of those things. But I've since fixed it. I like the feel of my new games a lot better. Big one is the Big Catch. You know the Big Catch?
I don't think I'm familiar with that title.
Yeah, you should look up the Big Catch game. It had a Kickstarter, um, and yeah, what is it? They fucking knocked it out of the park. So two guys who worked on um, Yonoid 2, if you're familiar with that one.
No, that one's actually new to me as well.
Oh, okay. Well, Yonoid 2 was a game made in a month for a game jam with a decently large team. I think it was probably closer to like a dozen people or whatever. But it's a pretty good 3D as far as like short 3D platformers. It's a really good one, and there's a lot of interesting stuff they do with it. That game actually does force you to use its mechanics in a lot of cool and interesting ways. And so now imagine some of the people directly responsible for that have now made their own full-fledged game. It's very cool looking. I don't know if you saw a trailer for it. It's like PSX styled, but like really like cutting edge PSX. When I say PSX, so I think there's like people have this kind of like a weird like thing of like, oh man, we made a PSX or like N64 style game, which means it kind of just looks bad. Um, not to like, but like that's the point. Like it looks like weird or off putting or whatever, right? Because like that was a style, right? But they tried to make, generally speaking, when you were making a game for an old console, you were still trying to make it look as good as possible. This feels like a number of people have like, oh, this is like a PS2 game because, but even though it has so many things that are like still PS1 like era aesthetic or tells, like the jittery polygons or texture warping, it's just everything else is done so well. It's so like well put together and artistically sound that it looks like it could be, it's more of a PS2 game. It reminds me of like how the DS and the N64 are very similar in terms of like limitations. Like the DS doesn't have like the same filtering. It doesn't have the has a higher. I don't actually know if it has a higher resolution, but like it's the same sort of like texture resolution and models and stuff almost. I think the texture resolution is a little higher too, but the main thing I'm getting at here is that it's just they're able to do so much more with very similar limitations just because of how much more experience they have. And this feels like to me like a handheld version, or like if there was, I guess that would be a PSP, maybe, I don't know, but like if there was like a super PS1, I don't know. This feels like this game feels like it was made for that. It's beautiful though. It's got amazing art. It's got amazing character designs. It's got amazing audio. Um, the level that I haven't played the game yet. I'm hoping I get to at some point earlier, but level design looks good, and I've liked what I've seen of it. What they've shown me and what how they talk about it, of course, and you have two to go off of. This game just looks extremely good to me, and I'm very excited to see what they do with it. Um, yeah, trying to think if there's any other important stuff coming out. Um, there's a lot of other. So also to follow these guys. This is hi, my name is Matt for Vernal Edge. I think it's just Right Stick Studios for uh, Double Shake, and then Fillet Group for uh, The Big Catch. There's also just several other people who are working on games that are coming out or being worked on, um, but but are not out yet. So stuff like I mentioned, Amphibian from my friend Hayden. There's Arbiter, another action game from Jordy JS. It's kind of Arbiter game. It's kind of hard to find, but it looks fantastic. It's like Kingdom Hearts 2 inspired. Action game. It'll be out sometime this decade, I hope. Uh, there's Fight Core. There's God, there's a lot of good games coming out. People are cooking. Let me tell you, people are cooking. Um, yeah, I'm gonna cut it off there just because I could probably keep going if I just kept listing things forever. Fever Dream Johnny, but Modus games, Simple Dream. But I'll stop there because I'm sure you want to also get back to other things.
Well, Ritz, I do thank you for those recommendations. I don't know off the top of my head if I've heard of these or if I've like come across them before.
Yeah,
But when you were explaining them, I took a quick look, and for Double Shake, I'm not gonna lie, if you hadn't said, I can't even commit to that joke. 100%. The moment I saw Double Shake, the moment the mechanic of the name,
yeah,
and everything, yeah, that 100% you can see where its roots are.
yes,
Um, so it's like even down to some of like the I want to say like background elements or what have you. Yeah, so it looks, it it very much wears on its sleeves its inspirations, and I think that's fantastic. You know, all those games look fantastic. It's just Double Shake is the one that I wanted to speak to, just because it, for me, I've when it comes to Mischief Makers, I'm not going to try and say Mischief Makers is an amazing game. I'm just going to speak to it being a iconic game, right?
That's
Um, well, it's been a long while since I played it, but it's also it came from it was a little janky. I don't think anyone can argue
fair.
that one too
Mischief
hard.
Makers has a lot of heart. It's very
Yes.
inventive. Um,
Um,
it's a little
but
scary also. Visually, like I played the first level and I'm like, oh, I don't like how everything has like a spooky face. I don't think it's supposed to be as scary as it feels.
I know what you're saying there as well. Um, but no, I'm speaking to Double Shake just because it's, Mischief Maker, like I said, is for me, it's iconic is the whole shake, just the everything about that package. And, for Double Shake, 100%, you can see where it's from. But all of those games, you gave a shout to or mentioned to check out, I'm gonna check them out now. They all look absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yes,
People are cooking up great stuff in the indie scene. I love indie games so much. I would probably if games were just like AAA, I'd be like, yeah. But there's always so many cool indie games to just find like under a rock somewhere. They just keep cropping up. You can't stop finding them. It's great.
yeah, and I've said this before, and like I'm never not going to say it. Is I absolutely love indie games because yeah, like they do, they're typically more willing to experiment, typically more willing to kind of just see what they can make work, or they'll focus on one thing really well, and they'll do that one I can't think of the right word. Um like the one function, the one experience, the one screw it.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's one
Very
thing that they will focus on. Feature.
Yeah, yeah. They're very concise.
Yeah. And I've always liked that because, um you didn't shout this one out, but like for example, like Loop Hero, I liked how specific it was in what it was. Um, so there's like that's always the nice thing about indie games is that they're more willing or more they have more freedom to be specific and do that thing really well, really interesting, right?
Yeah.
But no, Ritz, like I said, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I want to let you, like you said, maybe go make some cookies or what have you, get on with your Friday evening. So yeah, if there wasn't anything else, I will let you get on with your day.
I think that's mostly it. I think we're good.
All right, well then, yeah, I will definitely let you get on with your evening, Ritz. So thank you again for making time to have this conversation with me, and thank you for joining us on the Red Tunic podcast, as well as a special thanks to Ronald Jenkins for the use of the music from the title track from Roads Deep. And if you like this podcast and want to support it and help it grow, please subscribe or follow me on Twitter at Red Tunic Podcast to receive the latest episodes and news, and be sure to share if those you think might also enjoy it. Thanks, till next time.